What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick.
Miller.
And we have an album review for you. So one that I definitely want to go over for this week of the 18th of November was the newest offering from LA sludge metal veterans 16, Into Dust. This comes out again on the 18th of November on Relapse Records. It's been formed in 1991 in Los Angeles. This is their 9th full-length overall, and sound-wise, these guys kind of occupy like sort of a unique territory in sludge metal. Mm-hmm. You have pretty much everything you hear in sludge metal, the big, heavy, thick riffs, but there's also like nods to hardcore, but there's even nods to like doom metal and stoner metal in there. I've been a fan since Relapse Records reissued a lot of their earlier albums, namely Curves That Kick. I really got in their sound. And again, like it's this really interesting mix of different styles that kind of comes together and forms something that, honestly, like parts of this you really don't think LA. You think, well, the other LA, the state LA, like Louisiana, like NOLA, like it has that fierce southern sludge sound, but again, all these other elements mixed in makes for a really wild listen.
Yeah, and even like a little bit of like grunge chorus. In the chorus, they have these grunge elements. That's for me is where like kind of the West Coast comes in, that grunge era in their choruses. But mainly, yeah, Louisiana, southern sludge, and mainly because it's associated with Crowbar, you know, they sound like Crowbar, which is great.
100% sound like Crowbar, but like imagine Crowbar and like Helmet and Buzz Oven and then also Quicksand kind of all getting together and forming their own thing, and you get like very unique melodies that kind of is just a product of that mix, but you also get stuff that is like, again, as soon as you hear the riff, as soon as you hear the sullen guitar harmonies, you're thinking Crowbar.
I mean, for me anyway, I get like you hear things of other bands, even like Chimera and Scissor Fight came up in my ears a lot, and those are two very different bands. But which makes this album interesting to listen to.
It's a real interesting journey. Like the opening track, Misfortune Teller, you get what sounds like someone jingling their keys and getting fed up and trying to kick in a door, and then all of a sudden, well, the riff kind of kicks in the door for you, like, yeah, just this beastly heavy riff with a super groovy chorus riff too. Yep. Like, it's just a brooding, mean song. It sounds like a more hostile, less weird version of the Melvins. Like, I don't know what they're talking about specifically on this one, but it's not something strange like what Buzzo would talk about. There's some contempt behind it and just kind of driving these riffs into your face. The guitar tone is appropriately thick just and brutal. Chunky.
Yep.
Oh.
And the intro to this is fantastic, and they literally rip the rug out. It feels like sonically they rip the rug out for you, and you're just boom into this groove, this like jam, and it's just brought down to another level instantly, you know?
And man, when this album chooses to like just rock a riff and a groove, like they lay on it. They stay on it for a good long measure. They build on top of it often. They don't use like leads a lot, but there's a lot of additional atmosphere. Like you get some like interesting like kind of atmospheric tremolo. You get an occasional bluesy lead, some cool licks at the end of a big chug. It's just really interesting to hear all these elements sort of employed as this album goes on, because there's some really wildly different tracks on here. And for the most part, man, they fucking nail it. Like, Scrape the Rocks. This is a slow chugging bruiser. It is just driven by a syncopated chug. The most forlorn, depressing, clean vocals. Like, they're almost groaned.
Yeah, and I really like the choice to use the clean vocals. He could have went toward any of the variations of screams that he has, but it was a good choice to go with the clean vocals. And I usually don't like a ton of clean vocals, but this was good.
And the vocals kind of sit back in the mix. Like, this is very much like the guitars, and I would say just the music in general, because the drums are fucking nice and punchy on here too.
Yep. All
that out front, and like the, you know, cleaner vocals kind of add like a weird atmospheric layer to it. Like there's like a little bit of like a weird filter on them, like almost kind of a phaser effect.
Which it kind of makes sense because they break into that clean, there's these clean breaks in the song later in it, and they just kind of accent the main notes of the heavier parts in the tune So they really fit well together, and they play off the dynamics between the vocals and the guitars very well in this song.
And it's a pure sludgy bruiser. Like this one,
Yeah, don't
just,
get the clean green brought up.
This is dark and dismal and fucking heavy as hell. But you also get like the flat out like hardcore oriented songs like Lane Splitter, which is like one of the shorter tracks on here, and just a high energy bruiser. Like it brings out all the punk influence. It's pretty much a song designed to make you speed on the highway. And I'm pretty sure that might be what the song's actually about. And also on the song Null and Eternal Void, more of a hardcore like sort of vibe to it. Like the vocals are a little bit more hostile, a little bit more raw, but you do get like a cleaner chorus in there. But instead of having like a giant chug that goes through it, it's more or less like a big riff that they let it drone out in the last note. But the vibe of it kind of has like, you know, like an old school like Earth Crisis sort of like groove to it. Like, yeah, this is it's a mosher, but it's kind of a depressing mosher, so I'll mosh slowly.
That song for me had a weird flow, like leading up until the middle point, and the end it started picking up for me anyway, and piecing it together in my head better, but it kind of had a weird flow in the beginning.
I can say that. Like, it is, you know, some of the transitions on here can be kind of odd, but, you know, generally the songs, I think, flow really well. But it's where they combine all this stuff that I think they are at their strongest. Like, namely, the floor winds, the opening breakdown. Holy shit.
Yeah, and it's cool because the song before it, Null and Eternal Void, it was like kind of amped up. It had a upbeat tempo. And the beginning of The Floor Winds, they kind of amp it up like it's going to be at that tempo. And then boom, it goes into this halftime feel and it just hits really, really hard.
And it's got that hardcore vibe to it still. Like you get that syncopated chug. Like it's still a mosher, but it's kind of like a slow bruiser of a song. But then you hit the chorus and it's this sort of soulful, reflective, just dark, dreary chorus with some great guitar harmonies in it. Like, man, dude, they captured that dismal fucking feel so well.
Going back to what you said before and just their ability to layer those little guitar parts over. That's nothing crazy.
No.
It's like mostly single note stuff, but it just adds a layer of atmosphere.
It's just strong riffs. Like, they don't need to be technical. They just need to capture the whole vibe. And I like how this album kind of like switches around. Like, yes, it can be like, you know, very reflective and sullen and just dark and moody, but it also can be like just fucking angry, like just pissed off energy in here. But when they combine all that, it almost kind of feels like there's like a cool sort of narrative to the songs. And the songs, you know, following the lyrics, sound like there are like stories involved with this. When you get down to songs like Never Paid Back and Dirt in Your Mouth, honestly, some of the best fucking riffs on this album. And that is saying something because this album is loaded with nothing but riffs.
Yeah.
But these songs just feel intensely personal and dark. And my God, like it's just instant hooks. And this is something that the band has definitely gotten better at over the years. Like their earlier stuff was way more visceral. Like the hardcore influence was really more prominent. Here lately, within their last couple albums, namely Dream Squasher and The Lifespan of a Moth, they've started incorporating more melody and even sort of balancing out the ratio to clean vocals to harsh vocals. And I think that's kind of let the music sort of, you know, explore melody a little bit more. And these songs are hooky.
Yeah, a lot of good hooks. And in Dirt in Your Mouth, the drummer does a fantastic job of just kind of like switching up the tempo. Like it's at one tempo, then halftime, and one tempo. And I don't know. It's fits together really well, and it changes the dynamic of the song without the guitars really changing at all.
And it's interesting that the riff itself is almost kind of like energetic, like it's more thrashy, like there's a little bit more like pep to it. But again, the switching off and on in terms of tempos,
it's cool.
Yeah, it keeps your head swinging. You're just like, well, now I got to catch myself and fucking all right, I know what you're doing now. You already changed it. God damn it.
And even though like. Even on that song, the chorus isn't as strong as some of the other choruses on the album, but it's still like earworm stuff.
And earworms, again, I wasn't like getting into this thinking there would be like a tremendous amount of earworms. Like I think Dream Squasher, their last album, was very catchy, but it was kind of catchy in like almost one singular way. This was catchy in like multiple ways, like dressed up to get messed up. This is just a sort of a bouncy sort of swagger, sort of like, well,
caveman thing.
Caveman boogie.
Like Scissor Fight. That's what it reminded me of, Scissor Fight. I love fucking Scissor Fight. I was like, yeah, man, I vibe on this real hard.
It's just a bouncy groove. Like you're thinking like bands like Clutch and Scissor Fight, like like Texas blues, because there are blues licks all over that fucking song, and all the hardcore vibe kind of just drops out in favor of like, just I don't know, shake your ass in the pit a little bit,
Just fucking good tunes.
Yeah.
Good tunes that you can jam to.
Yeah.
Have fun. That's what music is about most of the time, is having fun. It's not all dark, dreary shit.
But we like the dark dreary shit.
We like the dark, dreary shit.
Now, like listening to a song like Dressed Up to Get Messed Up, first off, that fucking song title is great. I love the fucking rhyme scheme on there. But you have to remind yourself that this band is from LA. Because, like, literally at this point, there's not much on here that sounds like, anything West Coast. This sounds like
just the grungier chorus elements. Like I said.
Texas, Louisiana, that sort of thing. It has that sort of vibe on most of that. That is the prevailing sound in terms of like all the harmonies and, again, like these bluesy licks.
Mm-hmm.
But you get down to a song like Born on a Barstool, and they remind you they're from LA, but in a sort of unique way, because the song opens up with sax, clean guitars, pianos.
Yeah. Good stuff, man.
Yeah, and like a jazzy sort of swing and spoken word. It's fucking beatnik sludge. And it's kind of amazing because it curtails into the bulk of the song well. Like, it's a very soft, subdued, beginning. Like, it has like the weird atmosphere of like being in a dive bar, like it's dimly lit
type shit.
The smoke's hanging over the crowd. The fucking waitress is, would you like another drink, sweetie? Like, she's been working there for 30 years.
And shit, the scotch, like, hey.
And then the song just explodes into sludge metal and another fucking killer riffy fucking song. There's a fun off-time rhythm. The song itself is kind of dark and dreary and depressed. Like, I mean, he's talking about being born a barstool and drinking to forget everything. And it's like, all right, well, I mean, it sounds like you're in the right place.
Yeah, I mean, a speakeasy dive bar would be.
But it's that interesting little saxophones showing up in metal albums thing, and it's done really well because it captures a very specific vibe, a very specific atmosphere. And while the bulk of the song is vastly different, like, they do bookend it, they do go back to it at the end before the big close. But I don't know, like, it's an interesting setup, and it's just sort of a creative idea.
Yeah, I agree. It's off a little bit, but it does fit into remind you, hey, this is where we're from. I don't know, dig it. It was cool. I didn't like some of the negatives about the album I have is on this song. It kind of sticks to the same riffs and patterns, just it's flip-floppy a little too much, and it drives it a little too much where it becomes slightly repetitive.
And I'll be honest, not every chorus lands. The clean vocals, while they are effective in terms of like, doing the more atmospheric thing, like it's that sort of like depressing groan in the background, and it adds a lot to songs that have that sort of vibe. But when they kind of reach beyond that, they don't necessarily land very well. Like nailing the song Dead Eyes, I love the big hardcore bruising riff that kicks it off in the verses.
Yeah, it's
very
great.
Harsh vocals.
Kirk would be proud.
Yeah. But you get to this chorus and it's just sort of odd. It feels kind of out of its element. Like, this is the most grunge sounding thing on the entire album. And it has this weird inflection where it's trying to be poppy at the end. Like the note goes up, and I don't know, like it feels like they kind of just shoehorned in a Helmet chorus from their cleaner years, and it was like, this doesn't work.
Yeah, it kind of seemed placed in there like, this kind of works. Fuck it, print it.
It's kind of like one of those choruses that you can just tell it's on an island. Like, well, I mean, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
And in Ash in the Hourglass, I thought that the chorus in that could have dropped that hard vocal off because he layered the vocals with the fray and then the clean. It dropped the fray vocal, and I thought that would have been better, a better decision. It would have highlighted his singing a little bit, which is pretty decent.
Yeah.
So, and I thought that part could have been clean there and dropped that. You could have understood it better.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're not into stuff like, I would say, like mainly Crowbar, like very riff-centric stuff, like not a lot of flashy lead play. It does get like a little bit more up-tempo, but this mostly kind of hangs in a kind of a slow, groovy pace. But, that would be, I guess, maybe a dig if you don't like that sort of thing. But I think, honestly, if you're going to listen to this band, this is probably something you're going to like if you already like Crowbar.
Yeah.
But overall, I dug this. And I really dug the last one. But I think this one's different. Like, it's a little bit more accessible in a way, I think. Like, it's still brooding. It's still heavy. Like, it's still just fucking chuggy as hell. but there are like more accessible parts, but I still think they're kind of working on the formula there. So overall, I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. I dig this. This is another solid album from 16. I've been a fan of these guys for a while, and it's cool to hear them constantly evolving. I like the idea of going after more catchy songs while retaining those big bruising riffs, because that is a hallmark of their sound. Some of the choruses don't land though. Like most of them do, but some of them, like, I don't know, like there's just feels like there's a tone or a vibe that just doesn't match up with it. But overall, I think the songwriting here is really good. There's not a lot to it, just in terms of like just riff and groove and sort of just labor that dismal atmosphere. But honestly, if you have strong riffs, you don't really need much else.
A whole lot of bullshit.
So yeah, I mean, this is just a killer album if you're, again, a fan of bands like Buzz Oven, Crowbar, fucking Helmet too, like throwing some hardcore too, like any of that shit. If you just like heavy, groovy shit, I'm reasonably sure you're going to find some killer stuff on here.
And I'm going to agree with you, 3.5 out of 5. Again, and you said everything, so thanks.
I mean, you know.
Every damn time, like, we gotta remind him on the bigger shoots, like, okay, Nick, you can only hit 3 things.
Oh, that's too little.
3 things. But yeah, love the doomy feeling to it. Obviously, the Crowbar love in there. I love that. I like the nods to the West Coast grunge stuff a little bit. I think it misses, like you said, on some of the choruses, but it shows they're trying to incorporate melody into their songwriting while maintaining that heavy. And that's what is important and will catapult them. So keep doing it, keep experimenting with it, because you're on the right track with those. Just, yeah, it's awesome. Listen to it, pick it up.
So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our store is there. We have shirts. We are currently out of extra large, I believe.
Yeah, I'm going to do an inventory and working up for a revamp of a website at the first of the year turn. So we'll get there.
And anyway, our Patreon link is in that site as well. And, well, we made the announcement about pre-sale for Denver Death Fest.
Yep.
We will be making the lineup announcement, I believe, on the new year. So you will know exactly who's on there, and we can't wait to tell you.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to have a Black Friday ticket pass sale of some sort. So denverdeathfest.com. Check it out. We'll update too. Thralls of Metal here.
First 10 people that buy them gets a sad, unenthusiastic hand job from Jammin' John.
Airfare included.
He won't watch this. He won't know. But no, he's going to do it. And it will totally be unenthusiastic.
Like, hey, dude, just go in here for a minute.
So we asking a lot of questions. Like, dude, there's a lot of dudes showing up with their dicks out, man. Like, what the fuck? They're asking for me. Like, I don't know what happened there. They're fucking weirdos, right? And, of course, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, commenting, all that shit. Correct? 13,000 subscribers, which is a remarkably high number for what we do,
awesome.
But it's amazing. Thank
I
you
even
guys.
got recognized in the wild, so I have to grow a mustache now to change it up again. The guy was like, "Oh yeah, you're the YouTube." It's like, fuck.
As long as you don't say, it's like, yeah, I'm Necrotic Nick. Fuck you. Yeah, like, wait, what?
I should have been like, yeah, my name's Nick, and just jacked him in the nuts.
Like, what the hell? Why are the cops here, man? Like, oh,
That'd have been a dick move.
Weird. But no, seriously, thank you all so much. Like, it's just amazing to see this grow. It's, again, beyond any of my expectations, but those were exceeded a long time ago. But we're going to keep rolling because there's so much shit for us to talk about. So thank you once again, because, yeah, and we will catch you later.